Try answering the question below. What answer did you choose? The correct answer was C, which is almost halved. Only 5% of the world answered this question correctly. Sweden and Norway ranked first and second with 25% of its people answering the question correctly, followed by Finland 17% and Japan 10%. One Swedish doctor named Hans Rosling attempted to reveal how stupid we truly are about the world. In 2017, he conducted an experiment that was never done before. He went around the world and asked 12,000 people 13 simple questions about the world. A lot of those people were intellectuals that included medical students, teachers, university instructors, and even highly ranked political decision makers. So it's apparent that this experiment was fairly well thought out and pretty well balanced. Rosling was under the assumption that these people would have at least some idea of how our world is functioning, like whether the world is getting hotter or what the average life expectancy is. The results were surprising. On average, only 2 out of 13 questions were answered correctly. No one scored perfect, and as much as 15% of the participants scored 0. I've attached the link to the question, so take a look if you're interested in trying answering the 13 questions. Now, through this experiment, it is clear that we're more ignorant about the world than, say, chimpanzees who will answer the questions correctly with a 33% chance. Hans Rosling writes about what's making us so ignorant and mistaken about the world in his book Factfulness. He writes that all of us, as human beings, have 10 fundamental instincts that desensitize our understanding of the world. The first is the gap instinct. The gap instinct explains that we perceive the world in a way that everything tends to be divided into 2 different groups. For example, we tend to think that the world is divided into the poor and the rich, and the truth is that the majority belongs in the middle class. Take a look at the 2 charts below. The chart shows the number of births per woman and the average survival rate of the born child in different countries. Which chart do you think is the most accurate representation of the world today? The left chart shows the situation in 1965, and the right chart shows the situation in 2017, which is fairly recent. The world is no longer divided into 2 as it used to be. Today, the majority belong in the middle, and a similar phenomenon occurs in quite a lot of areas. The level of income, tourism, democracy, education, healthcare, and electricity supply. So many different indicators of the world's well-being are consistent with that of what's shown above. The second is the negativity instinct. Let's try testing our negativity instinct by looking at one more question. The answer is A. The author says that we have an instinct to glorify the past. As a result, we tend to think that the present is just as bad as the past. But that's not true at all. Rather, the world has become a much better place than in the past. Take a look at the graphs presented in this book one by one, and hopefully they could convince you that the world we live in right now is really not that awful. We're all working hard to make this world a better place. The last one is the blame instinct. The blame instinct explains that when something bad happens, we tend to blame an individual or a group that we usually think badly about. Why? Because it is more comforting to know that someone we hate has committed something wrong instead of someone innocent committing it. Our fingers are always directed towards the evil managers, the lying journalists, and foreigners, even though it's not really their fault from an objective point of view. Here's another question asked in the book that tests your blame instinct. Take a look at the diagram below, referring to the income level plot. Most of the carbon dioxide accumulated in the atmosphere today has been emitted by countries currently living in the 4th stage of life over the past 50 years. Canada's per capita carbon dioxide emissions are twice as high as those of China, and 8 times higher than that of India. The world's wealthiest 1 billion people account for half of the CO2 accumulation in the atmosphere. It's not India. It's not China. It's not the poor people, but rather the rich. I believe that this book teaches us a very important lesson. There's so many things we misunderstand about the world. But the world, in fact, is getting better and better. In a world full of lies and pretenses, let's all clear for the facts and understand the world properly.